The Accidental Entrepreneur is brought to you with the help of our sponsor, AWeber, the world's leading small business email marketing and automation service provider. Since 1998, AWeber has helped more than 1 million small businesses and entrepreneurs through its suite of web-based email marketing, automation tools, and education. AWeber, the best option when it comes to marketing your business. The podcast is also brought to you by the Alternative Board. Since 1989, the Alternative Board, or TAB, has been one of the leading peer advisory and business coaching organizations for independent business owners and CEOs across the world. By facilitating peer advisory boards, private one-on-one coaching, and strategic planning services, TAB helps business owners improve their businesses in ways that change their lives. And be sure to check out our affiliate sponsor, One of One Productions, the New Jersey-based podcast studio that produces and edits both audio and video podcasts. They sell equipment for the avid podcaster and have even created a guesting kit exclusively for our listeners. And be sure to support the podcast by ordering some logo merchandise from our online store. Listen to all of our sponsors' commercials later in this episode and follow their links in the show notes to learn more about their products and services.
It could be like aesthetically pleasing, like it could be nice to look at or whatever. But if it's not like communicating what you want it to communicate, then it's not going to be effective for your business. And that's what you really want. You want effective branding.
Yeah.
And then the second thing I see people do is anytime there is a holiday, a major holiday that they want to market around or do a promotion around anything, they throw their branding out the window and use, red and green for Christmas, black and orange for Halloween, or, whatever it is. They suddenly are using these swirly holiday fonts. It's like, no, like the whole point of branding is to be consistent. So you can find ways to bring that holiday feel into your marketing materials and still be on brand. You don't just want to like throw it out the window just because you're doing something.
Okay, welcome back to another episode of the show. We have, as always, another great guest. Amanda's going to be with us, talk about branding and tell her story and share all the anecdotes we're going to learn as business owners. So hopefully that'll be helpful. If you are listening on your favorite podcast directory, please be sure to leave us a 5-star review if you can do so. If you're watching us on YouTube, ring the bell, subscribe, like us, all those types of things, so we can keep bringing you really good content like the conversation we're going to have today. So let's get on with today's show.
The information provided in these episodes is for entertainment purposes only. It is not a guarantee of success or to be construed as advice of any kind. You should always seek advice from local licensed professionals before making any decisions.
The dictionary defines an entrepreneur as a person who organizes and manages any enterprise, especially a business, usually with considerable initiative and risk. People often start a business without much choice, perhaps due to a job loss or just being dissatisfied at work, and they come up with an idea they just know can be successful. They become entrepreneurs by accident. That is to say, their success or failure happens by accident, not with intention. My name is Mitch Beinhacker. I'm a corporate attorney and a business advisor. You're listening to The Accidental Entrepreneur, my podcast about how to achieve success on purpose, not by accident. Join me along with our monthly guests, where we share our knowledge and help you get a hold of your business. And now on to today's episode.
Hi, I'm Amanda Guerassio of Studio Guerassio. I'm a brand strategist and designer that partners with serial entrepreneurs, strivers, freedom seekers, and multi-passionate empire builders to craft branding that feels right, works hard, and looks awesome for both you and your audience. And today I'm going to be talking to Mitch about my own journey on becoming an accidental entrepreneur. Thanks for listening.
All right, Amanda. So thanks for coming on. You can hear me clearly, right?
Yes, I can. Thanks for having me, Mitch.
Okay, good. I appreciate it. On a sunny afternoon on a Monday. Where are you located?
I am in Austin, Texas.
So it's like maybe 2 hours behind, like 1:05, something like that?
It is 2:05 here.
Oh, only an hour. Okay, good. Well, then I appreciate you putting the time aside to talk to me today. So I mentioned before, and you in your intro, you said, you're a branding specialist and all the things that you do for people, design, logo, marketing. I was looking at your website. Maybe you want to, like you said, go back and let's tell your story a little bit. That's what we're here to do today. And then we can lead into, advice for people and things they should be doing maybe in the second half of the show.
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay.
So where would you like me to start? Just like take a way back?
Born in the log cabin in northern Canada. I don't care.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I have had an interest in art, being creative as far back as I can remember. Like when I was a kid, I was, getting blank notebooks and like creating my own stories and illustrating them and like drawing them. Or I don't know if you remember those posters that came in the yellow tubes that were like black and white and you could just color them in like all yourself. Those were like my jam when I was little. So I have been on the creative side of things for as long as I can remember. And then computers came on the scene when I was in middle school. So that's when we got our first like home computer, and it was like, oh my God, this is amazing.
Yeah.
And my dad actually got me my first kind of art program. It was called Bryce 3D, and it was like a 3D scene builder thing. And it was just like, I thought it was the coolest thing ever.
And it probably did nothing in those days, right? The way the
compared to today, yeah, like very not good at all. Like I was doing things like, a floating metal orb against like just a flat plane of water, that kind of thing. And so when it came time to, the college years, like, what am I going to do for college? What do I want to do for the rest of my life? Design seemed like a natural fit because I love art. I love computers, and it kind of married them both. So that's what I went to school for. That's what I got my degree in.
Graphic design?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. And when I got...
Where'd you go?
Marietta College. It's a small private liberal arts college up in Ohio.
Sure.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And when I got done with that, I intended to get a job somewhere in-house or at an agency or something, like some kind of full-time job somewhere working for somebody else. I never meant or even thought about being...
And we get a job. That's, of course, what you do, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Any better.
Yeah. So at the time I had started dating a boy who lived down in Austin. We knew each other from our hometown, and I didn't have anything lined up. So he's like, why don't you just move down here? It's, a nice big artsy city, better, seemed like better prospect than anywhere in Ohio, quite honestly.
I know. Now they say Austin's like one of the hottest cities to live in the country. That's where University of Texas is, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I hear it's a hot city.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that got me down to Austin. And he was a freelance web developer at the time. So he suggested, while you're job searching, why don't you take on a few freelance gigs just to, have some income coming in while you're doing this.
To do design work.
To do design work as a designer,
Right. Because in those days, a lot of the web guys they weren't artists, right?
Exactly.
So somebody to design the graphics and somebody to do the programming.
Yeah, and we actually partnered on a few projects during the course of that. But so I took myself to Craigslist.
Which was
the place back in the day. I got a few clients off of there, and I realized, hey, this is kind of awesome. Like, I can work from home. I can set my own schedule. I don't have a commute. Like, that was a big thing because driving in Austin was very scary to me, having been brought up in small town Midwest Ohio. So
now at that point, Amanda, did they have a lot of those websites that were freelance sites like Upwork and
like Fiverr and Upwork and all those didn't really exist yet?
Yeah, I had a guy this morning who's 23 years old. He started this website called Revelancer. They have about 15 to 20,000 users now, and he's kind of trying to rebuild the whole, freelance community differently than these other sites do. Yeah. So at that point, it was Craigslist, and hopefully nobody, in those days, nobody murdered you or tried to steal everything from you. So it's probably better, right?
I do have a couple like scary stories from that, but
sure.
Yeah, so I kind of like, well, this is fun. I'm just gonna do this.
Yeah.
And so I jumped in, feet first, head first, whatever. Zero plan, zero business know-how, zero savings cushion, like kind of the worst place you could start a business from.
And so you haven't even had a job at this, like you came out of college, no job.
I worked as a junior designer my senior year of college. So I had interned for them one previous summer, and then I had a job during my senior year of college. So I had like a little bit of agency experience.
Right. But getting out, no job.
Yeah, correct.
Okay.
Yeah. All I had was, my skills and my portfolio I'd put together from school and
that works.
An email account. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Right. It's different in those days. Okay.
Yeah, very.
Okay.
So and I just kind of went with that. And
So you've never looked back? Like you never went and got a full-time job?
I have never had a full-time job since then. This was back in 2006.
Okay.
So it was before that kind of crash recession hit in 2008 that everybody was like, ah.
Yeah.
So I got in right before that, which was good.
Yeah, no, that's good.
And for many years, I was just kind of freelancing under my own name as a sole proprietor. Didn't like formalize anything, just kind of like took whatever came my way, generalist designer. And then in 2015, I was getting married, and I kind of used that.
To the same boy?
Different boy.
Okay.
Different boy, yeah.
He brought you to Austin, so you're a Texas girl now.
Yeah, he got me down here, and that was a good thing. And we're still friends, so it all turned out good. Like he came to my wedding, I went to his wedding.
Oh, nice. Okay, that's a good story.
Yeah. Anyway, so, I was using getting married as a kick in the butt to kind of like, okay, let me get my ducks in a row with the legal and financial and structure side of this business. Just so, my husband's stuff.
Formal.
Yeah, my husband's stuff would be protected in the case of any,
like steal everything from you, right? I mean, that's what happens, right? It's the liability exposure. So, okay.
So that is when Studio Guerassio, my business as it is now, was born. And during the process of setting that up, I kind of did some soul search and was like, what do, now that I'm like being intentional about this thing that I'm building, what do I actually want it to be? And so that's when I started specializing in branding specifically, instead of just being a generalist doing anything anybody would pay me to design.
Right. Well, I think a lot of us start that way. We just kind of making money and we're using our skills. So 2008 was right after you graduated pretty much?
It was 2 years after that, yeah.
Okay, yeah. So I got you by like longer than I'm willing to admit on a microphone. So more than 10. So, and then and that's what happens, right? So then you start doing these things and you're getting jobs and you realize that, wow, I have a clientele and there's people out there that are going to work with me. And now you have experience and you're like, well, I better treat this like a real company.
Yeah. I call it I put on my big girl pants, like actually treat it like a real thing.
Right,
yeah.
Exactly. Right. Okay. Yeah. So at that point, did you write a business plan? Did you sit down and put a strategic like marketing type of branding plan together that you kind of that developed over time too?
That the strategic plan developed over time. I did sit down and take myself through my own branding process as far as like,
what you want it to look like.
Who do I want to work with? What do I want to do? What's my vision for this? All that kind of thing. Which, there's some overlap between that and a strategic plan. So I did that. I did form the LLC. I got the separate business bank accounts, got my EIN, like all that official stuff. And so that's what I've been doing ever since.
And were you like focused on certain niche markets because your work had been demanded in certain industries more than others, or were you just kind of all over the board? Or
when I first started Studio Guerassio, branding was my focus, but I didn't have an audience niche at that point. Cause honestly, I was a little bit worried, like reforming this and focusing just on branding. I was like, oh gosh, like,
everybody worries about that niching down.
Exactly. Yeah.
But it's the opposite. It's true. Like you learn later on that being specific and being, very limited in what you do actually increases your business usually because people think of you more.
They know they have that stronger association with, that's what she does. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. But that's what branding's all about, right? Finding a niche, like designing your brand to speak to a specific audience.
I know. And it's so funny because it's like I do this all the time for clients, but doing it for myself is still so hard.
It is. It's difficult. It's so much easier for me to give legal advice to other people than it is to take the advice for myself. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
It's harder because it's easy to be the therapist for your client, for your patients, but then you need your own therapy. You know what I mean?
Yes, that is very, very true. Yeah.
Okay. So what did then day one look like? I mean, you probably felt like, okay, I got a new company now, even though you really didn't.
I know it was a weird transition. So I had to, change everything over from, I had been freelancing under my maiden name, Amanda Kopp. So I was changing everything over to Studio Guerassio.
That was good timing. Okay.
Yeah. So it was, like I said, I kind of used that as the kick in the butt to formalize things. Since I was changing my name anyway.
Right.
So there was all the logistics side of things, like the new email address, the new website, the new social accounts, like getting all that up and running.
Oh, right. Because you had the other stuff.
Mm-hmm. And then there was.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
No, you go.
And then there was the, letting everybody know this is what I'm focusing on now. And kind of putting my flag in in the ground for branding is what I do now. And there were a few clients that I'd had on retainer doing other stuff, just like small, like, graphics for their weekly email newsletter, or, little things like that, like that I didn't really want to do anymore because I wanted to focus on brand names. So, I had to have some conversations with them, find them new people to do that. So that was
right. You don't want to just dump your people.
Especially it wasn't a acrimonious party. It was just, I'm doing something different now. So
different direction, right?
Yeah.
Was a lot of your business localized, or was it more, because it was through the internet, you were doing work for just people all over?
Surprisingly, most of my clients have not been local.
Okay.
Like, even when I first started, those first Craigslist jobs that I got, one was in New Jersey. It was a jewelry store in New Jersey. And one was like a hard drive erasure company that had like global offices everywhere. So it's like, it didn't, the internet kind of like opened that world up.
Through the sites you were on, or?
It was mostly Craigslist to start out for, honestly.
Long time.
Yeah, because even like Facebook groups weren't like a big thing. I was on LinkedIn, but I didn't really do anything with it. Craigslist was kind of my source for a while.
Did you do any local networking or going to?
I did. I wouldn't say that had
big impact.
As much effect. Like, I put my own ads up on Craigslist as like a creative services, and I had some people come through that. But yeah, mostly it was like me browsing like all the big city Craigslist, like New York, Chicago, LA, like everywhere, and seeing who needs a logo designer, who needs a something designer, who needs a whatever. And then
in the early days, right?
Yeah, in the early days, yeah.
So then, what was so now that you said, okay, I'm going to be a branding specialist, let's say, I don't know what you called yourself, but let's say we were doing that. What was then your business development strategy? Like, how are you gonna? Right, you didn't want to just either peruse Craigslist all the time. That's not a strategy. That'd probably make you nuts. Looking for things and, reaching out to them and submitting things, whatever. So, what was the business development strategy?
So a lot of it was people-based, relationship-based. So reaching out to past clients who I had done branding for, because I did have branding projects in among all other stuff I was doing when I was freelancing. So kind of reaching out to them, letting them know, hey, I'm actually specializing in this now. If you know anybody, yada, 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 please send them my way. I kind of doubled down on content. So for a while, I was blogging pretty regularly. I had my social media stuff.
Authority, right?
Yes, exactly.
Thought, right.
And then I did up my in-person networking too. So it was kind of a combination of all those.
Yeah, I think I had somebody say something to me like, oh, I don't want to approach the people that I know. And I'm like, well, you don't have to approach them and say, hey, will you do business with me? You approach them and say, hey, I'm, going in this direction, and, can I sit down and pick your brain or whatever type. And I think we overlook the resources that we have, like within our own, circle, and building, keep in touch programs through, right? Just keeping in touch with people, because they might not use you, maybe, your best friend doesn't need your branding because whatever they do, or they work for a company, whatever, but they know or will know or meet somebody or whatever. And you want to make sure that they all know it. And I think a lot of people, they shy away from that. It's almost like sales, they're like, ugh.
Yeah, I agree. It's a weird.
People know and like and love you. I mean, if they're not, maybe then they shouldn't be your friend. Like when I was young, a friend was in sales, and he said, if I call my friend from college and he says, I don't want to meet with you, what does it matter what I'm selling? Like, they're my friend, right? So maybe they shouldn't be then they said, well, no, I'm not going to talk to them again. Like, I don't, because then they're not really your friend. They just think like you're going to try and sell them. So this is ridiculous. So,
I think a lot of people too, on kind of the flip side, I hear a lot that people get referrals from friends and family who don't really understand what they do. And so the referrals are not great. It's like, well, if you took the time to let them know more clearly what you do, you might be getting better.
You have to train your friends. Yeah. Just like you train your clients. They go through the process, and you make them good referral sources because, not because they're like looking out for you all the time. You want to keep in touch with them, but so they can know where you fit.
And how I help, yes.
Yeah. I mean, I get calls with the craziest things, and I like to be that resource, but I do get people that say, "Oh, can you do this?" I'm like, "No, I don't do that kind of law." I know some people that do, but I don't do it. So let me find them, people or whatever. But yeah, I mean, especially in your industry, let's call it, marketing
Design,
and
even just design, like
it's a very broad category. So there's people that do different parts of it all over the place. I probably know 50 people that work in your industry, and they probably would all tell me that they do different. Well, no, I'm not like Amanda. I do this, and the other person, I'm not like her. I'm like him, and yeah, I do this strategy, and we only use this platform.
yeah,
Some of them are really specific. And I think when you're building that kind of a business, it could be what you want it to be, right? Like you do probably the stuff that you enjoy and the stuff that you're good at. And who wants a designer that doesn't like what they're doing? Like they're not going to give you a good result.
exactly. Or I mean, if they have a baseline skill, it might be okay, but like they're going to hate working on it. So it's not going to have that extra sauce.
What they're doing for you, what they're paying, what you're paying them for. So, yeah, and I'm a big fan of, don't do what you like. If there's something that you need for a client and you're not really the person to do it because you're like, I really don't want to do it, then bring somebody in to do it.
Exactly.
And just upcharge the whole, the whole thing.
Subcontract for sure.
Yeah, subcontract. Right. I do it for law. There's a lot of law I don't do. But I'm not going to let the client walk out the door and be like wandering the earth looking for what they're supposed to do. People don't know what to do. So,
well, I mean, that's similar because like I don't do, for example, like animation. So if somebody wants like a logo animated, it's like, well, I don't do that, but I can find, I can do the logo and then bring somebody in to animate it. Like, that's fine. Like,
yeah. Like, it's like, what is that whiteboard animation? You see some like commercials that way or whatever. And not just anybody can do those things. It's just
that is not a skill set I have.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so where are we now? We're in like 2016, 17,
this was about 2000. It was the fall of 2015 when I formed Studio Guerassio. Yeah.
Okay, so you kick it off and you start your thing. Do you remember your first branding client? Like, not that was a carryover. I mean, true new.
Yeah.
Branding.
Yeah, I do actually, and this one actually was a local client.
Okay.
Wish I remembered how he found me. I probably have it written down somewhere. But he reached out to me, which is always nice. And he was starting a whiskey distillery here.
Ooh, a bourbon guy.
Yeah, right. And his angle was that they were doing sustainably made whiskey. So they were reusing barrels from other industries. Instead of like new barrels, like saving trees. There's a whole thing. But yeah, so we...
That is that bourbon, American bourbon, I believe, somebody can correct me, I'm sure, is one of the things about American bourbon is that it's made in new oak barrels.
Yes, and I know.
Now you see all these things being reused. So it's just funny. Yeah.
Yeah. So we did, the base brand and the logo suite and the brand guidelines, all that. We did labels for the two varieties of whiskey. We did the launch website. I think I even did like box design for when they started like distributing and stuff like that. And that was really cool because it was local too. They unfortunately went out of business during the pandemic, but it was really cool. I was still up.
Oh no, I know why, because they couldn't make the stuff. It wasn't that people weren't drinking. They were all drinking like crazy. Our neighbors, it would be like recycling day, and you know which ones of your neighbors are drunk. They'd have like a full garbage can of, wine bottles and whiskey. But I guess that was a challenge for the distilleries and stuff. They had nobody to work.
Well, because a big part of the revenue was, distribution to like local bars and cafes and stuff. And so they suddenly lost that.
Yeah.
I mean, they were in stores too, but like they were definitely building on like the local community, local feel. And so when everything shut down.
I always like local stuff. So I always find it interesting. So because when it comes to branding, I think people think like, oh, now I'm going to do my logo. And they don't really think about it holistically, right? So in that client's instance, right, you were building a brand that would carry through to their labels, their marketing materials, right? Their colors, their look, their feel. And they had guidelines that they would follow, right? Because that's what branding really is, isn't it?
Yeah. So branding, the way I look at it is about answering the question, why should they choose you? And so that comes through in, your mission, your values, your audience, your visuals, like the design stuff, the copy you use, the experience you provide, the reputation you build, like all of that is included in branding. And so the way the way you can help shape that and be intentional about that is sitting down first and deciding, okay, like you said, like, what is this that I'm trying to build? Like,
Right.
What is my angle in the market? Like,
What's the message you're trying
what's
to
the
get across?
message? Who is this for?
Right.
What is my vision for where this company is going? Like all that kind of stuff.
Right.
So that's the first step in my branding process is we sit down and we go through all those questions and get clear on those. Because a lot of times people have it up in their head, kind of jumbled, maybe like vague ideas, but they haven't actually sat down to lay it out, write it out, and get really clear on that. And just that process alone can be so helpful with brand building. Oh, it's like I've had people tell me like that part alone is like brand therapy. Like they love that part of it. So
Well, I guess that's the point where people should focus on like ideal client profile, ideal customer profile, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can choose who you do business with, like who's the best kind of person, and then you target your branding towards them. Like don't target the people that you don't want to work with.
Exactly. Yeah. No, and don't target everyone because that's not workable.
Not targeting.
Yeah, that's not targeting. That's just
That's not the definition of targeting. Targeting is, shooting for something.
Yeah. So then once you have that established and you can pull like central ideas from that, those are your goalposts for everything else you do in your business. So you can look at a logo design and say, okay, does this communicate what we said we wanted to communicate? You can look at copy for an ad or a print piece and say, okay, is this tone of voice on brand with how we said we wanted to make people feel? Is it, does it match up with what we said we wanted our brand to be? So it just kind of helps like focus all your other efforts to like this one central idea.
Right. Well, if you don't really do that, then you really can't answer the why.
Yeah.
Why are we making this brochure? Why are we putting this ad in? Why are we building the website like this?
Exactly.
Lawyers are, I say this all the time, so I probably have a lot of friends who hate me now, but lawyers are notorious for this. They'll talk to some people or they'll put up a website. They all look the same and they don't do anything. Like there's no purpose. They
feel like they have to have a website, so they throw up a website.
Branding is maybe colors and a logo, but they're like a billboard on a highway that nobody's driving down, right? Mm-hmm. And they're all, you can find out information on their lawyers, but it's not, there's no marketing about it or a look and feel. There are some firms that do it well, but there's a lot that don't because they're not working with brand specialists.
Yeah, and they think, people can find out, here's what I do, and if they want to work with me, they can reach out. It's like, but there's a ton of other lawyers. What's going to make them choose you?
Yeah, right. Exactly. Why do they choose me? There's plenty of lawyers around that do what I do and that are just as good or better than me. I shouldn't say that out loud, but I'm the best lawyer, but they're good. Exactly.
They just do different things.
But I've been very, very kind of when I had my firm with partners and everything, we had certain colors, we had certain look and feel of our logos. And then when I went in on my own, I wanted to be a very intentional on the personal side because I'm into personal branding too. Mm-hmm. If you're doing that, if you're writing and speaking like the podcast and so forth, and then on the business side as well, because it's not like we're Coca-Cola, but still, things give you a feel, right? We're very visual, so it gives you a feel of warmth or not so good feel about what you're doing.
Yeah, I think that's something people forget too. Oftentimes, the first impression people will have of you or your business is a visual one, like before they read the words or hear the jingle or whatever it is, whatever format they're interacting with. Like the visuals is what hits first. So you have the opportunity to be intentional about that. Why wouldn't you take advantage of that? Like, why would you just leave it up to chance?
Yeah, exactly. Right. That's what it is. It's up to chance. Mm-hmm. And they're throwing blogs out there and they're speaking and they're putting up articles and they're posting things and it all looks different. And nobody's, and
nobody starts recognizing it. They're not building,
because it's all over the place.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't care. And I don't know how you feel about it, but there's no like difference between a solo person and a small business versus like branding's important on all levels. It doesn't mean like your logo needs to everybody says, I have my logo name. Should we get it trademarked? Like, well, it's got your name in it. So probably nobody's going to steal your last name. And like, what's the point? Right.
Yeah. It
can still be your brand. By the way, you can always put a TM it's like common law trademark by your name. You don't have to go and file it with the federal government.
Good to
know. So people get like crazy about that, like, as opposed to just saying, okay, I like this logo. I like the way it looks and let's get out there and start to build a a thing. So, okay, why don't we do this? I gotta give a props to the sponsors. They pay me a little bit of money to keep this thing going. It's like 2 minutes, and then we'll come back and we can talk about advice and what people do right, wrong, things you see, and we can go that direction. Does that make sense?
Yep, sounds good.
Okay, then let's go to the commercials. Here's a word from our sponsors. Looking to market and grow your business? Or perhaps you're just getting started and want to hit the ground running? AWeber is the best choice for online email marketing and automation of your business. From maintaining a subscriber list to drip campaigns and landing pages, AWeber gives you tools and integrations that make marketing easy and fun. As our partner and sponsor, we use all their tools to promote the podcast and market our law firm. AWeber, the best alternative for online marketing. For over 30 years, the Alternative Board, or TAB, has built a thriving community of forward-thinking CEOs and business owners who want to radically improve their companies. Through unique combinations of one-on-one business coaching, participation in monthly TAB board meetings with other non-competing owners, a suite of strategic tools, and customized strategic planning workshops, TAB membership can deliver greater strength to your business and a better work-life balance for you and your family. All packaged in a streamlined and affordable service that the people at TAB invite you to try risk-free. Maybe you're looking to get into podcasting, or you just want to market your business. Maybe you want to do it for enjoyment, or because you have a message you want to get out there. One of One Productions is a New Jersey-based studio just over the George Washington Bridge that caters to the booming business of podcasting. They offer a comfortable atmosphere using the latest technology available to record your podcast. And they are a full-service media company offering both audio and video production services, creating both audio and video podcasts, as well as video shorts for business and personal use. Professional audio equipment packages are available through their website for all budgets. And be sure to check out their podcast guesting kit, created especially for our listeners. Follow the link in the show notes to learn more about all of our sponsors. And now back to our show. And we are back. Amanda, thanks for your patience there.
No problem.
Me from editing anything in the videos, so I like that. What were we talking about? Oh, we're going to get into now advice for small business owners. Mistakes you see people making, things that they should do, maybe some things that they can do on their own, right? Because sometimes we don't have the budgets that we'd like to have. But as we build it up, then we can go legit.
Yes.
That's right, the goal. I do the same thing for the entrepreneurs. Again, started on a cheap package and then hopefully work them up and, so forth. So why don't we start with things you see that people consistently do wrong?
There's two things that come to mind for that. Number one, a lot of times I see business owners just pick their favorite color or their favorite font and use that as the base of their branding, which I understand. Like, you want to like your own branding for your business. Like, you don't want something you don't like. But the problem with that approach is you're not talking to yourself with your branding. Your branding isn't meant for you. It's meant for your potential clients or customers. So you need to be making sure it communicates to them what you want.
You got to figure that out.
Yeah. So it may end up still being your favorite color. It may still end up being your favorite font or whatever.
No,
but
don't just assume.
Don't just assume it's the same as your personal.
Like, why do they buy? You're usually wrong 9 times out of 10. You know what I equate it to? If you buy cologne, right, you make sure your wife likes the smell. It doesn't matter. You like the smell. My wife once said that. I go, I like this. Do you like this? She goes, it doesn't matter if you like it. I go, no. Do you like it? She says, not really. I said, so why would I wear it?
Exactly. That's a really good analogy. I might have to steal that.
Write
for
that one
future
down,
meetings.
right? Yeah. You don't want to smell good for yourself. What's the point?
Yeah.
Okay.
Good. I mean, you don't want to smell bad for yourself either, but
you don't want to offend yourself, but still, you also don't want to offend your wife. So if your branding is something that you like, but it offends your customers, then you better change it.
Yeah. So
you better know that you're, be intentional about it.
Yeah.
Good advice.
That's the major thing I see is people just, assume their personal preferences are their audience preferences. Photos, you can find a stock photo in any color palette you want. Like, even my color palette's kind of unusual. I have this like light coppery color and like a dark green, and like I can find holiday photos for any holiday in those color tones. So you could do that. You could add like bokeh effect or do something, like sparkles or whatever. You can give it a holiday feel without throwing your branding out the window. So
Right. And that's why the best time to promote your branding, because more people are looking at it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it will stand out because it won't be the red, white, and blue or the green and red or whatever it is for the holiday. So
exactly. Yeah. Did you find that people kind of market at the wrong time when it comes to a holiday? Like sometimes it's better to either do it the week before or the week after, so you're not like in the middle of everything. Or
I think that's really subjective. I think it depends on not only the holiday but also the business. Like some business, especially like for Christmas, if you're a product business, you're going to want to do it before so people have time to actually like buy the thing and get it under the tree and all that.
Beginning of the holiday season.
Yeah. So it depends on the business.
Okay. Good advice. Okay. So it can't be only two mistakes a business owner makes. So
those are the biggest ones I see. I mean, I guess the other one would just be in general not being consistent, like not having set colors and set fonts that you use again and again and again. Whether you choose them yourself or a designer chooses them, you should actually sit down and say, okay, these are my 3 to 5 colors that I'm going to use. These are my 2 fonts, one for headlines, one for body. And that's what I'm going to use. That's just what I'm going to use everywhere. Because I see people like, you look at their social media accounts, every other, post is different colors, different fonts. And there's like no visual continuity, no building a recognition factor, no, like I couldn't have told you what their branding was just looking at that because it just changes every single post.
Right. So if you're just getting started and you have no budget or whatever, is that what you do? You should pick like a small color palette, and you should pick like 1 or 2 or 3 fonts and as to where you're going to use and make some rules that go with those things.
Yes, absolutely. And if like you said, you're starting out, you don't have the budget to have somebody help you with this. I guess the best advice I can give is think about how you want people to feel when they interact with your business. What is the feeling you want to leave them with? Okay. And pick your colors based on that. Pick a color that feels like that. Because that's a good place to start. And then your color palette, I say 3 to 5 colors because that gives you enough variety that you'll have contrast between background and text, or a little bit of variety without being chaotic. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
And then, 2 fonts, one for headlines, one for body copy. And that's really all you need. And if you just, create a simple Google Doc, write all this down, write your hex code colors in there, write the name of your fonts, and just always use those. That alone will get you set up like aces against compared to so many other new business owners.
The hex code is the code you can put into when you're doing the colors, even on like Word, you put that into the exact color, right?
Yes. So that's what most people will be dealing with if they're DIYing stuff. So whether you're, entering a color in Squarespace for your website, or in Canva for a color, or in like Google Docs or Word or something for a color, it's the hex code. It's a 6-digit letters and numbers code for a color.
It's almost like a Pantone code, but a different
sort of. Yeah.
Thing. Got it. Okay. So, do I start with this may be depend on your industry, but do I start with a logo on my letterhead and a business card? Do I start with my website and carry that over? You got to start somewhere, right? And then carry it through? Does it depend whether on e-commerce or retail or?
I mean, like you said, it does depend on the business. Obviously, if you're e-commerce, the website is going to be the priority.
Yeah, right. Business.
If you're a brick and mortar, then more print things might be the priority. But in general, you want to at least have a online presence. So even if you don't plan on actively using them, I would claim a Facebook page, claim an Instagram page, claim
with a banner that matches your branding.
Exactly, with a banner that matches your branding.
Yeah, they have LinkedIn, no banner, then have a picture of their face. It's
right. That's that's like the minimum viable brand is a picture of the face and then like some consistent branding anywhere that you're going to show up. And you don't have to show up everywhere. So whatever makes sense for the business. But I would say to get going, put together a simple word mark logo, just use something in fonts. Don't worry about like an icon or symbol or anything. Just something that looks nice until you can have a designer do one for you.
Because they'll redo everything anyway.
Yeah, they will. Yes.
Which is nothing wrong. That's a good time to do a brand refresh, right? I mean,
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think people should do that too. They don't realize they should refresh their stuff. Like it looks like you're newer, you're updated, you're more high tech. I don't know, whatever it is.
Oh, 100%. And plus,
Yeah.
like if you're new to business and you're just starting out, like it may take you a few years in, like get your feet wet and figure out really what you want this business to be, like where you want it to go, who you want to work with and stuff. You kind of have to try a lot of things first to narrow down what you want. And so then, yeah, your branding may evolve as you kind of narrow your focus. That's completely normal, completely fine. Like it's going to happen. I've rebranded Studio Guerassio 3 times.
Yeah, me too. Reinventing. It's all fun to a certain extent.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
I mean, my logo in the back there over my head is a newer one. And a client of mine does all of the web stuff and everything. And then I said to him, listen, my podcast is getting lost in the law firm, and I'm coming out with a book, which is based on law anyway, but speaking, things like that. Can we do a MitchBeinhacker.com, like a separate, and he made a logo that kind of matched that one, to go with the personal
got like
brand.
a whole ecosystem of branding. Yeah.
Kind of. He didn't want me to do a double-sided business card. He was against that. But I said, I can't go to a networking event and pull out 2 cards and then people get confused. So I made him do it that way. And he's like, okay. So, but there are some events I go to. I can't if I go to like a town meeting and I have to represent a client, I'm not going to give him a card with my personal branding on the back. So I have another card for those purposes.
That's a tricky situation. Yeah.
Yeah. So they're like, what the hell? You have a podcast? Great. I'm like, hey, everybody's got to do marketing. That's the way I look at it.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, good. So where were we? We talked about problems. We talked about advice. Any good success stories without like embarrassing anybody or giving away personal information?
Yeah. So, so I had a client here in Austin who had been homebrewing beer for quite a while.
You got a lot of alcohol going on there.
Yeah, it was a big thing in Austin. Yeah. And his dream was to have a brick and mortar like brew pub situation.
Yeah. One of these. Yeah.
Yeah. So he wanted to do a crowdfunding campaign to help raise funds to renovate and get that.
Gotta get all the equipment, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So he's like, this branding I've put together myself that I did years ago is not gonna. It's like
it's terrible.
It was not good. It was terrible. Yes, and he's like, I know it's terrible. It's okay.
Yeah.
So we got him set up with new branding, and he used that on his crowdfunding campaign. He raised 122% of his goal.
Wow.
For that.
So he raised enough to open the brew pub?
Yes, and it has been open since the fall of 2021. It's still open. It's still going, and he is living his dream.
That's like the middle of the pandemic. How did he open up? Well, by then, I guess things are starting to open up, right?
Things were starting to open up by then.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, I know the timing was like, but
no, but it's nearby, right? So you can go to the brew pub and you can see your branding and stuff.
It is so fun to go there because he had me help consult on like the signage and like the paint colors and like all that stuff inside too. And it's just very cool to see that in person.
Yeah, well, those kind of businesses, branding is a huge part of what it's their brand. It's what they do.
Yeah.
It's not like the color of their beer. So
no, I mean they could if they wanted to go that way, I suppose. But.
Yes, yeah. Okay, good. I like that stuff. So what other stories you got?
Oh gosh.
Any difficult ones where you tried to help people and just they either wouldn't listen to you or whatever?
Okay, I can tell you one of my horror stories from the early days. Yeah. So this is one of the Craigslist horror stories. So this was my first year down in Austin, my first year freelancing. And somebody had reached out to me off of my ad on Craigslist saying, like, hey, I need help with a logo for my new recording studio. They were doing a music recording studio. And I was like, oh, sure. Awesome. That sounds great.
Yeah, it sounds fun. Yeah.
And so she gave me an address in East Austin and we were going to have the meeting there. I assumed it was an office, right? I assumed it was like a studio. You get there and it's a house, first of all, and it's a very rundown house and it's got like cinder blocks in the front yard and like trash and like it's not a nice house, we'll put it that way. And so I'm already feeling a bit trepidatious. I get up to the door and I knock and I hear from farther down in the house, he's like, hold on, let me put on a shirt.
Boy.
Okay.
How did you find this guy? Through
She
Craigslist?
found me on Craigslist, yeah. So she answers the door with clothes now, and we go in, and there's no furniture in the place. There's like Like
there's no chairs, no couch, there's nothing to sit on.
there is like one room that has, a door plank across some boxes and 2 chairs.
Yeah, you know what
with a
houses
computer
are
on
like
that.
drug dens or like that.
Right?
They don't need
Yeah. And no other furniture in the house. And so I'm already thinking like, how do I extract myself from this situation?
supposed to be a recording studio.
This is what I'm thinking. I'm like, how is this like a business? Like, I don't understand. And so we start talking and she's telling me like she wants a photo of a toilet in her logo. And it's like a prison toilet. And I don't even remember what the reasoning was, but like she was adamant about this and like didn't understand that you don't put a photo in a logo because it can't scale to different. And like just a toilet. Yeah. And it had nothing to do. I don't remember what the business name was at this point, but it had nothing to do with even the name of her business. I just did it just did not make any sense across the board. And finally I was like, I am not comfortable with this. I don't think I am the person to help you with this.
Right. I'm not the right person.
It took me a couple of times of saying that before she would actually let me leave because she kept trying to convince me to like work with her. And I was like, no, just let me out of this house. So
yeah,
that is my Craigslist horror story.
When I used to have a firm that was in town where we were in a house in the like the professional area where the doctors were, and the lawyers, and every once in a while somebody would just walk in and they're always the crackpots, there's the one guy walked in. Have you ever heard of sovereign citizens? Mm-mm. They're these people that like don't think that the Constitution applies to them, and they make their own driver's license and whatever. Okay. And he was like, I need to put up a trust because I'm not exposed to the laws. I was like, well, look, I'm a member of the American Bar Association. I enforce the laws of the United States. I'm not, you can forget about it. But yeah, they get pulled over by the police and they give them the license and they get arrested because they're like, this isn't a license. It's my license. Not in this country. It's not.
Yeah. I didn't know that was the name for them, but yeah, I have heard of people like that. But yeah.
Yeah. I just met a guy. We were talking about marketing and so forth. Mm-hmm. So I just met a guy from Austin. I had 2 people from Austin. Who was the other one? I can't remember. Like 2 weeks ago, I had 2 podcast interviews. They were both from Austin, Texas. I'd never met anybody from Austin. And now I met you. He wrote a book called The 2-Hour Cocktail Party. You ever heard of it?
No, I haven't heard of this one.
So the idea is, I don't know if it works for you and me when we're married, whatever. I don't know if people coming to your house, but so let's say you're in Austin, you live in a big city, you don't know a lot of people. There's a whole process of creating a cocktail party and inviting 10 or 15 people and networking and connecting them. And he wrote a book on it. It's like 8-10 chapters. His name is, I had it here. I forget anyway. So if you hear about this in Austin and you meet him or you get invited to his cocktail party, you tell him that you know me.
All right.
I think his name is Nick. His name was Nick. Wait a second. I'll tell you right now because I think it was last week or 2 weeks ago. It was Nick Gray.
Okay.
And the other guy's name was Steve Kilberg. I forget what he does. He's a consultant, but he's also in Austin.
Yeah, it's a booming city these days. Like it is, even since I moved here in 2006, it's changed so much.
Oh, big time. Yeah, I hear it's a great place to live.
It is, yeah.
So if you're somewhere and somebody mentions a 2-hour cocktail party, I just heard about that.
I'm in the know now. Awesome.
This guy, Nick. Yeah, exactly. Okay. So what's a good way for people to learn about you and follow you and learn from you? And, they can hire you if they go to your website.
They can absolutely hire me. My website is a great place. As far as social media, I spend most of my time on LinkedIn these days. So that's
okay, good. I like LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Okay, good. And you have articles on there and you post blogs and things like that?
I do post. My blog kind of fell by the wayside when I had my daughter and I haven't quite gotten that up again.
Right. But you're busy doing stuff for customers and clients. So you can't.
Exactly. I do have an email newsletter that goes out every 2 weeks and I do post on LinkedIn. So I do things like this where I'm a guest on the podcast.
Guesting. How do people get on your mailing list? Is that through your website?
Yeah, they can sign up on their website. I have a link to it on my LinkedIn. So yeah, they can find it if they're looking for it.
Okay, good. Any last minute advice, like if you're a business owner getting started out before we sign off, so to speak?
I just want people to realize when you own your own business, you can build it into anything you want. You just have to get clear on what it is you do want first.
Right.
Building in a vacuum of what you're trying to do is the slow way. So take a little time.
Right. The sooner you get clarity, the better off you are.
Yes, exactly. So the sooner you can sit down and take some time to actually get clear on that, I think the sooner you'll see that lift off with your business.
Right. Exactly. All right. Well, Amanda, you'll remind me after we get off how we connected, but I appreciate coming on Friday, and enjoy the rest of the weekend. We'll go to the closing and stick around for a little bit.
Okay. Thank you so much for having me on, Mitch.
Thank you for listening to this episode of The Accidental Entrepreneur. Opening and closing music written and performed by Howie Moskovich and made to order music. For information about Howie and his music services, please follow the link in our show notes. If you like the podcast, please tell others about us. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, on Amazon Music, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and most of the other podcast directories. If you like what you hear, please leave us a 5-star review and feel free to share our episodes on social media. If you have any questions or comments, ideas for the show, or you'd even like to appear as a guest, reach out to us by email at info@beinackerlaw.com.
The Accidental Entrepreneur is hosted by Mitch Beinacker and produced by Beinacker Law. If you'd like to learn more about our business and legal services, you can find us on social media or visit our website at beinackerlaw.com. Thanks for listening, and be sure to subscribe to our feed to be notified of all future episodes.